everyone, Jenny here with Sipping Streams Tea Company with another amazing video about tea. So you might see my setup right now, and I am about to make my favorite, my all-time go-to tea, which is the organic Kwan Yin Oolong. Now it's called different things depending on the dialect of Chinese that you speak, but Kwan Yin was the mercy goddess and also known as Iron Goddess, and this tea is named after her. This is actually an oolong, and you might see here on my table that I have my hot water, of course, this clay pot in this bowl, two clay cups, a clay pitcher, of course my digital scale with a plate to weigh out my teas, and my tea tools here, which are to weigh out my tea. So you might wonder, like, what's up with the whole thing? And this is the tea that I mentioned in my book, The Essence of Tea, The Transformational Journey of a Tea Connoisseur. This is the tea that got me started drinking tea and being interested in it. This is the tea that my grandfather made for himself every day when he got up and went for a walk, and he'd do his Tai Chi and then do the tea ceremony. And the tea ceremony style that he did, the Chinese tea ceremony, now there's two different kind of styles, was the gung cha style. Our family's from Hong Kong, that's where I was born, and honestly, it didn't make me become a tea drinker, but when I think about tea, this tea reminds me of my childhood and very good memories of my grandfather. Now, you might not have seen a tea ceremony set like this before. You're like, why is she putting it in a plate? Yes, it's essentially a plate. And I am not at home right now. I mean, I'm not at the tea house right now to be able to grab my tea ceremony tray. But some people perform the Chinese tea ceremony, or gung cha, in kind of like a wider, deep tray. And it has to do with a lot of water movement. So I'm going to show you how to make Kwan Yin Oolong. Now, Kwan Yin Oolong is a very unique tea because it can be steeped so many times. The first thing you want to do is you want to weigh out your 2.5 grams per 8 ounces of water. Now, if you see this pot that's made out of clay, it's very shallow, and so it might fit maybe 9 ounces of water, but it's okay. So you always want to tare your scale, and I'm going to take one of my tools or paddles or whatever you want to call it. It's kind of like artists, how they have so many brushes and they can do so many things with the tools that they have, or mixologists with their cocktail sets, that you can just use the tools however you like. I'm going to double check the scale because I think it didn't quite start registering it, which happens sometimes. I'm going to tear the scale again. That's what I thought. Now, this oolong is extremely dense and tightly rolled, and so a little bit goes a long ways. You might see that's kind of chunky, and each one of these nuggets actually is a whole leaf. It's a whole tea leaf, and it's typically made in like middle of summer, late summer. It's a more mature leaf for sure. So what you want to do in the Chinese tea ceremony is when you put it in your clay pot, you're going to rinse it out. So you might pre-rinse out the pots and the cups. You might rinse it out with your water. And the nice thing about taking your water up to a boil at first is that when you're getting all set up, it starts to cool. Now, oolong tea should be steeped at about 195 degrees water. And see how I poured it over? And so good that I have this plate here, this bowl type of plate. So then I can rinse all of my little things off. And that's just good for cleanliness in general. Sometimes these clay cups kind of get a little dusty. And in the Chinese tea ceremony, there's different ways you can do it. Some people do it a certain way, some people don't. It's kind of like a free-spirited, however you're feeling kind of way. I'm going to pour out all of my tea. Now that made a lot of tea. And you'll notice a light pale color. That's totally fine. I'm actually going to dump this out because this isn't actually like a tea ceremony bowl, but And what it does is that it awakens the aroma of the tea leaves. So if you can see in here, you barely see any of these leaves at all. Actually, you can hardly see them at all in here. And that's because they barely opened up. So the tea Kwan Yin Oolong, you can re-steep up to 6 times. The 3rd through the 5th steeping are the best tasting. Now you notice I didn't really time it that time, but this time I will. I'll do about 2 minutes. That's my preference. So Kwan Yin is the mercy goddess, and one of the origin stories of how tea was discovered was there was a Shaolin monk, a Buddhist monk called Bodhidharma, which some of you have heard of, and he was staring at the wall of the Shaolin temple, meditating and meditating for days. And so he briefly closed his eyes, just nodded off a little bit, and he felt so ashamed that he immediately woke up and cut his eyelids off. So if you see little statues of Bodhidharma, you might notice that he's got these beady eyes because he's got no eyelids. And then Kwan Yin came down from heaven and took mercy on this poor man who was so devoted and accidentally fell asleep that she created tea leaves from his eyelids. So that's what one of the origin stories of how tea became. And that is also the reason why Buddhist monks will meditate with tea, because it has caffeine in it and it will keep them awake. So tea is good for concentration. It's calming, but it does have caffeine in it too that keeps you awake and alert and focused. So all those hours of meditating throughout the day and staying focused and staying calm, oolong is great for that. In fact, the Chinese also like oolong teas because of their very fatty dumpling types of foods and their noodles and lots of carbs. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Hey Nisha, thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions at all, write them down in the comments below. I'd love to answer them. So anyways, oolong teas are traditionally known for helping with digestion, especially very high carb and high fatty foods, such as fried egg rolls and dumplings and things like that. So oolong tea is typically drank during tea time, like dim sum, like you have in Hong Kong, with lots and lots of carbs. But oolongs and pu'ers are typically very popular. Now this is way more tea than I need for myself, but my grandfather would actually do this Chinese tea ceremony for himself every day, just for himself, tea time every day, in a very similar brown Yixing set. I'll pour one for you and one for you. My favorite steeping is actually the 4th time. So if you can imagine, it's a great thing that I poured out the first steeping because that's a lot of cups of tea. If like the best tasting one's not till the 3rd through the 5th, then you definitely want to get through the mediocre ones. The signature of this aromatic oolong is a green, bright, orchid-like aroma. And that's very signature to Tea Kwan Yin styles, or Tikuyam, or whatever dialect of Chinese that you speak. And just reminds me of not florally like jasmine, but this nice, bright, round, yellow-green vegetable flavor. That's what it reminds me of anyway. Now, if you've seen me drink tea like a professional, or professionally evaluate tea, you always want to smell the tea, and oolongs are known for their aroma. So it's very important to appreciate the aroma. Of the leaves, oh my goodness, this is a good one. I don't know if the camera can see this or not, but the leaves, actually I'll just dump the leaves out for you to see that they hardly opened at all. Actually, let's put it in a glass cup. Okay, I'm gonna make a bit of a mess here for you. So typically this would not be very orthodox in the Chinese tea ceremony, but I just want you to be able to see the beautiful tea leaves. Each one of those nuggets is a leaf that will slowly open with time, and that's why it takes 6 steepings to finally open the tea. Yes, this is my favorite tea. Yes, Brian. Very, very good question. So if you see here in the glass, you'll see that they're slowly unfurling, but this can last up to 6 times. And it's so aromatic. It's the middle of the middle. So oolong teas are the largest category of teas. So there's 5 types. There's white, green, oolong in the middle, black, and pu'er. And oolongs in the middle actually have 5 subcategories. And Kwan Yin is in the middle of that whole huge spectrum. Oolong teas just mean they are a tea that's in between a green and a black tea. So sometimes they're really light like a green tea, and sometimes they can get almost as dark as a black tea. So there's so much variety in oolong teas. And this oolong tea in particular, because of its rolling style, is really good for multiple infusions. In fact, it was created for that purpose, to enjoy the tea, to appreciate and be mindful of what you're doing, which is just taking time and enjoying a simple beverage, which took a lot of work to do, but it's from a simple place out in the fields from one leaf at a time. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you want to learn more about tea, definitely check out our YouTube channel. We've got lots of great resources there. And if you're interested in any of our award-winning teas or instruments or anything that we use, definitely go to sippingstreams.com, and you can always message us, write us down in the comments, and we would love to talk about more topics of tea that you're interested in learning. Thank you so much for joining me, and stay tuned for our next video on tea.